Hi, I'm Michael.
And I'm Sadie.
And we go to Wake Forest. Okay, so for the first question, it depends on the class, but in English classes, I've written anything from like 3-page papers to like 7 to 8-page compare-contrast papers, and then I've also had a couple like 15-page research papers.
Yeah, I'd say that like compared to collegiate, it's probably a lot more research writing, a lot less creative writing, but it really depends on the class. For me, like Michael, most of my papers have been between 5 to 8 pages, I'd say, some a little less, some a little more. Most of them are research, except for my lit class is more like analyzing literature, but that would probably be the only class that isn't a formal research paper.
At collegiate, it was really nice in AP Comp because we got to write a wide variety of papers from like personal narratives to more organized like definition and argument papers.
And then in AP Lit, I have to say that the OPs really helped, as well as the senior seminar paper. The OPs helped us kind of learn just how to write really quickly, write well quickly. And then the senior seminar paper was really similar to what we write in college, like a really extensive, detailed paper.
There's probably less interaction with your instructors. Usually I get my edits by email from my professor, and I only really talk specifically about my paper with them if I go to their office hours.
Yeah, it's a lot more work on your own, a lot more research on your own, and there's a lot less peer editing. And yeah, basically all my papers are graded by my professors, but I'd say there's a lot less interaction with the professors because class time is reserved for actual classwork, not talking about your paper.
And actually on the subject of peer editing,
and there's a lot less peer editing. And yeah, basically all my papers are graded by my professors, but I'd say there's a lot less interaction with the professors because class time is reserved for actual classwork, not talking about your paper.
And actually on the subject of peer editing, in my Spanish classes, I had kind of a different experience where we would write a paper and the majority of editing, because we would have like specific classes devoted to peer editing, so we would talk a lot about it with other students, and I've actually written a couple of group essays, which were kind of weird, where like we would all talk about our thesis together, and we would like each maybe take a body paragraph and then write the conclusion together.
And see, like, that's interesting because in my French class, we're not allowed to peer edit. It's like considered against the honor code. So I guess it really just depends on the class. I probably approach writing a lot more formally than I did in high school. My papers were shorter in high school, so I usually write a preliminary outline, and then I write a first draft and edit it probably once before I turn it in. Whereas in college, I'll write probably 2 outlines, like a preliminary one, and then I'll add details of that outline, and then I'll develop it into a full draft and edit it 2 or 3 times maybe before turning it in. So it's a lot more in-depth of a process. Based on how hard it is to get an A, I wouldn't say very difficult. I've been pretty successful with all my writing assignments. I would say it takes more effort, but I definitely feel prepared. It's not something that I can't do by any means. And basically, it probably takes more effort, but it's not any more difficult to get an A than it was a collegiate. Is what I would say.
The main difference for me has basically been that, like in high school, I learned a lot about the tools of analysis and explanation, and in college, I've had to work really hard on focus and making a clear thesis, and that involved a lot of like smoothing out of my training. In college, I've worked a lot on making my thesis more clear, and that involved like smoothing out my transitions and making my introductory paragraphs a lot less broad. And also, one of the things that I really liked here is the writing center, and that's a lot like math help that we had at collegiate. And basically, you meet with a graduate student, and they go over your paper, and before you even go in, you send in what your objectives are for the meeting and what you want to work on. And they talk a lot, not just about grammar and punctuation, but they help you with like structuring your essay and
one?
So my first semester, I took a theater-based seminar class, so most of my readings were plays, which I really enjoyed. And I've always thought, I don't really like reading, but I've always thought that plays are a lot easier to get into the world, so I enjoy those.
Most of my reading has been basically just nonfiction informational text. My first year seminar was actually about the Palace of Versailles, so it was a lot of just documentation about the different aspects of the palace and other palaces of the same time period in France. Besides that, I've had a lot of informational reading for an anthropology class I took, political science. My literature class right now is probably the only class I've had that's fictional readings and a lot of British novels, which I enjoy because I really like reading, especially British literature. But yeah, mostly nonfiction informational text.
Just stop it. Stop.
Go.
My attitude toward reading, probably read a lot less just for pleasure than I did in high school. I have a lot less free time to read books just for fun. I probably read one book in my free time per semester. So it's basically a lot more formal, a lot more reading just for information, not to analyze. The only time where I do a lot of analyzing is in my lit class. Besides that, it's basically just taking notes for class the next day.
I'm kind of the opposite, actually. The main thing that I realized my senior year was that I can't really read unless I have a pen in my hand. So otherwise, I just kind of zone out. But it means I read a lot slower, but it makes it easier when I have to go back and write papers and find like the themes or whatever and get quotes. Oh, this one's kind of awkward.
Well, you better get going because I'm filming.
Wait, really?
Okay.
Collegiate does a great job of encouraging discussion in their classes, and that's carried through on college. And one of the other things I really liked in Miss Chipman's class, actually my junior year in American literature, was we would do these things, and I don't know if everybody else hated these, but I liked them. And we would basically look at biographies of the authors, and that kind of gave us some context before we even started reading.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. Definitely, I think collegiate prepared me really well for analyzing literature. And also, I felt like going into all my classes, I was a step ahead of most other people in the class. Most of the stuff the professors look for freshmen to mess up, like grammar, not having a strong thesis, not being able to develop your thesis really well in the intro, and not knowing how to support your thesis with more than just the content of your paper, being able to support it with the structure of your paper as well. I felt like because of collegiate, I was already able to do all of those things. So I felt like I was just kind of a level up from most people, which was really helpful going in.
One of the things I never really liked in high school were all the PowerPoint presentations we had to do. I think we had to do at least one of those in every English class I was in, and I haven't really had to do that in college yet, and I've been really happy that I haven't had to.
Yeah, me neither, definitely not. And I also think that it'd be a lot more helpful if we did more research papers that required parenthetical citations, because one thing that I felt like I struggled with was knowing how to cite sources and cite them properly. I felt like we never really talked about that, and it was sort of inconsistent from teacher to teacher. Like, I remember in Ms. Chipman's class, she'd be really strict about types of citations and would want more than just what we found, and it was sort of inconsistent from teacher to teacher. Like, I remember in Ms. Chipman's class, she'd be really strict about types of citations and would want more than just what we found on the citation guide online. Whereas other teachers would just require you to have like the Emily or Chicago citation, and it'd be nice to have one set rule for the entire English department so students could know like exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. What? I couldn't hang out all the time.
Oh my God!
I had friends. I had video games to play. Food to eat by myself. No, I'm kidding. pumpkin all the time. And her cat's really into
Pumpkin always hated you.
Pumpkin likes me, kind of. Pumpkin might have known it was gonna end. She might have known.
He might have done that. Oh my.
I'm sorry, how long did you guys take?
No, I knew Pumpkin was the guy. It's been a while, okay? I haven't seen Pumpkin in forever, and Pumpkin never out here anyway. Oh, God. My bad. I
You
didn't
can't just drive over to your house. He's a fucking cat.
Okay, the number of times, by the way, that I drove to your house as opposed to
Was
your house.
completely even.
Debatable. I risked my life to get to your house. Remember
What are
that?
you talking about?
I drove on the highway while it was icy, and I was in a crash.
You didn't tell me about that.
You knew I was in a crash.
You like swerved out of the way.
Yeah, my light was endangered, and you don't even remember that.
Remember that one time when you told my parents you had a flat tire and said you called your dad to drive to my house at midnight to help you with your flat tire?
I don't
My parents
remember
didn't know he was coming over.
I do remember trying to hide it.
They were like, hi, Mr. Cobb.
My dad.
Yeah, you killed him. My parents, this is really awkward.
I didn't want your dad to help me with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
awkward.
My dad gave me after you.
Feel free to
My parents, this is really awkward.
I didn't want your dad to help me with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
awkward.
My dad gave me this talk afterwards. He's like, Sadie, sometimes boys don't want to admit they need help. But
Really?
it's your job to understand that they still do, even when they tell you they don't.
He gets me. Donald gets me. I don't
You're a dumbass.
Okay, let's go back.
So let's answer this question. Yes,
That whole time.
yes.
Let's cut that.
Go.
I think reading and writing skills are pretty crucial to almost any field, so it doesn't really matter what career you're going into. Communication is always key, whether you're talking to higher ups or people below you, or even other organizations. But for me specifically, I'm probably going to double major in econ and Spanish, so for economics, I'll be writing case studies or analyzing historical trends or something like that. I'm not really sure, but I've heard there's a lot of papers in that department. And then for Spanish, there's definitely a lot of writing, and I've seen that this semester. We have to write a lot about cultural traditions and historical events. So I'll probably be writing a lot more.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think whatever your major is, you're going to be writing, obviously. It's not just senior thesis, you're going to be writing in grad school, no matter what career you decide to pursue. Me personally, I'm probably going to go pre-law, which is a lot of writing to begin with. And then either career, like whatever career path I choose, if I decide to become an attorney one day, that's a lot of reading of legal documents and testimonies from witnesses and stuff like that, and being able to build a strong argument from documents that you're given. I think that all comes from writing simple research papers in high school and college. And then if I decide to go into public policy or diplomacy, that'll, again, be a lot of writing, either writing laws, writing policies, or being able to interpret laws of different nations. So being able to read and analyze long, extensive documents is really important.